It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. And we begin here at home as we continue to commemorate President Tinubu's second year in office. His achievements and shortcomings have been the major focus in the news headlines. Halfway through the first presidential term of President Tinubu, who completed 2 years in office yesterday, which was Thursday, Nigeria is in better shape than at any time in the past decade. Well, that may come as a surprise or even sound like a sick joke. That's to tens of millions of Nigerians who are suffering the worst cost of living crisis in a generation. Well, this is according to Financial Times article on the president's 2 years in office. This article further explained that President Tinubu, a former governor of Lagos and the country's wiliest politician in a generation, has stabilized the economy and laid the groundwork for a broader recovery. This year, the World Bank expects growth of 3.7% in what would be Nigeria's best performance since 2014, save for a post-COVID rebound. Most ordinary Nigerians will not feel that. But it is a decent performance when oil prices are weak, according to the Financial Times. The tiny green shoots have come because Tinubu's government has tackled, albeit in often haphazard fashion, debilitating structural distortions. That's an excerpt from that article in the Financial Times. We now move to the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the LCCI, which has reviewed the impact of President Bola Tinubu's administration's economic reforms and declared that the reforms have grown the service sector and left the real sector, especially manufacturing and agriculture, struggling for survival. The Director General of LCCI, that's Dr. Chinyere Almona, said that 2 years into the administration, Nigeria has undergone significant policy shifts, most notably the removal of fuel subsidies, exchange rate liberalization, and attempts to shore up public revenues through tax reforms. Almona, who assessed the macroeconomic impact of these reforms, said that Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP growth of 3.4% in 2024 from 2.74% in 2023 was driven by the services sector, which expanded by 5.37% and accounted for over 57% of the GDP. She said that these reform measures have, and I quote, also imposed short-term hardships on businesses and households, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, which remain the backbone of the Nigerian economy. According to her, Nigeria's current macroeconomic landscape reflects a nation in transition. Now, lastly, Mauritania's Sidi Ould has been elected the 9th president of the African Development Bank Group. His election was announced on the website of the AfDB on Thursday. He will assume office on September 1st, 2025, and that's taking over from Dr. Akinwumi Adesina of Nigeria, whose tenure ends this year. Ta emerged winner after rounds of voting conducted by the AfDB Board of Governors during the bank's annual meetings held in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. The board comprises of finance ministers and central bank governors from the bank's 81 member countries. He defeated 4 other contenders, including Amadou Hott of Senegal, Zambia's Samuel Maimbo, Abbas Mohamed Toli of Chad, and Swazi Chabalala of South Africa. So congratulations to Sidi Ould Tah. Gosh, he has quite a daunting task to fill the boots of Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who did phenomenal with the African Development Bank in the past decade.
Did I say Akinwumi Adesina made African Development Bank what it is today? Prior to this time, African Development Bank had other presidents. The last president was Donald Kaberuka of Rwanda. It wasn't this glamorous. Akinwumi Adesina increased, the pot of money from about less than 100 billion to over 300 billion. In fact, there used to be jokes back in the days how African Development Bank presidents used to sort of like lobby to see directors in IMF and other world institutions. But since Akinwumi Adesina came there, there's more respect and prestige in the position. Congratulations, it was a hard-fought race. The Arabs played their game right. I was making that point while we were talking to Bosin yesterday. And he was the Arab candidate because he had run Badie for about 10 years, from 2015 to about this time, from Mauritania, speaks English, speaks Arab, speaks French. It was the big Arab vote, and it came through for him. Prior to this time, he had worked as finance minister of the country, technical advisor to the president. Started his work in the 80s in the municipal authorities in Nouakchott, went to University of Nouakchott, got up to a PhD level out of a university in France, and has done a lot, in DFI, developmental finance industry. And this is the experience he brings to bear. A lot of people will say, oh, Sidi didn't give a lot of interviews. Probably the only part at which I saw Sidi was the Brookings Brookings Institute debate, which was in fact the only debate that had all the candidates leading up to this, And he was able to prove his own among the Board of Governors, very high scores. I talked about the dichotomy of regional and non-regional partners. That also came to play again. He got a lot of votes. I think over 68% from the non-regional partners, and the regional partners gave him over 48% thereabouts, in the 2 voting blocks and all of that. Then Sam Mabo came second, which I also had a chance to be able to interview. What's it called? Hamad Hot came third, got a lot of votes, didn't get a lot of votes, from the regional and the non-regional partners. And then Shabalala, was first eliminated in the first round of votes. So congratulations to Sidi. He's got a tall task. Will he be able to bump up the numbers as regards, increasing the pot of money for them? Nigeria just renewed one of also its investment scheme in the Africa Development Bank that he used to investment instrument that he used to invest in other African countries and development generally in the African continent. And that's about $500 million. So congratulations. We'll see how the bank will pan out in the years to come. As regards Financial Times, I disagree with Financial Times. We're not out of the woods yet. I was at the IMF spring meetings when the IMF projections for inflation was well over 30% in 2026. If my memory serves me right, I think it's about 35%, thereabout. But I'll say well over 30% because I don't have the data in front of me. This is fact that despite of rebasing has also happened. And when you also look at it, there's not been any trickle-down growth. And this so-called 3.47% growth we celebrate, we act like, oh, nothing happened. In 2021, I had to go and check the numbers again. I remember due to base effect, we grew 5% under Buhari. Despite the fact that Buhari is known for lackluster growth, after COVID 2021, we grew 5%. This was a country way back 10 years ago that had no problem growing over 6%. This was a country in 2023, in 2003, thereabouts, that grew 13%. We're averaging 6-7% growth. Like you saw the LCCI say, the growth has not trickled down. A lot of industry has. The reforms were too hard on industries. This time, May 27, 2 years ago when President Tinubu took over, dollar to naira was 460. Today is 1,600. How do you want businesses to be able to plan and adjust? Yes, they are declaring profit because they've been able to take a lot of shavings and all of that. But does it trickle down? What about the people on the low rung of the ladder? How have their lives become better? We've had a lot of malaise, institutional malaise, like you pointed out yesterday. The political institution is jittery as we speak today. There's a fear of slipping into a one-party state. Also, the corruption institution is thriving. Till today, we've not had some result and definitive words as regards the humanitarian ministry and many other corruption cases here and there. Also, when you look at it in broad terms, the lives of the people, it's way down now. Things are very difficult for the people. Inflation has increased. Amounts to get food is on the high. Electricity tariff increased without any commensurate, even service production. Band A, people on Band A are complaining that they can't see the power. So for me, when we criticize government, it's for government to redouble their efforts.
Okay, for 11 years, I ran the editorial board of one of the leading newspapers in Nigeria, the editorial board of the Guardian newspapers. I sat on that editorial board for 21 years. So I'm a subject area expert in this regard. And I would like to say that based on my experience and competence and talent, that the Financial Times editorial on President Tinubu is perfectly in order. Now, what does that editorial say? It says that President Tinubu has put up a very decent performance in the first 2 years of his presidency. And I think it's a fair thing to say for the editorial writers who have seen that Nigeria had, from 2015 to 2023, a government who was struggling with policies, with performance, with present-mindedness. That editorial also said that President Tinubu has been able to inspire investor confidence. I think that was also a fair thing to say. However, it was a balanced, even-ended editorial. Even acting, those people who wrote those editorials, they will probably be my staff or people who worked under me or who came after me. They now balance the editorial by saying that there are issues with banditry and terrorism, the fact that ordinary Nigerians are not getting the benefits of the macroeconomic achievements, and 3, that the tax reform that the Tinubu government needs to build on it. So it was an even-ended editorial. And I speak as an expert and an experienced man in that business. Okay. Now, next to LCCI, that's the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Chinyere Almona was our guest on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show last Sunday. And she expressed the same concern. The context of my conversation with her was simply that the LCCI, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and also NECA, the Nigerian Employers Consultatives Association, NECA, they had issued a statement reacting to the position of the central bank, the MPC, which voted unanimously to hold rates and to keep the MPR at 27.5%. And during that conversation that I had with her, she made more or less the same statements, that look, rates cannot remain at 27.5% because it is not fair to the manufacturing sector. And now she has followed up by saying, look, the service sector may have benefited from the macroeconomic policies of the government. But there are issues. High energy costs, fuel pricing, still a problem, instability within the economy, weak industrial productivity, inflationary process, even if it is put at 23.7%. Debt service is about over 90% of the debt burden that Nigeria faces. So the lady has been very consistent in what she has been saying. She is saying that the manufacturing sector needs to be energized. The manufacturing sector needs to be supported so that we can have real growth in this economy. She has not said anything different from my conversation with her last Sunday on this same station, on this same table. Third, the new AfDB president. Well, I think it is instructive that the new AfDB president is coming from Mauritania. 2 persons in the history of the AfDB have been president of the AfDB. Labidi from Tunisia, and then there was also a gentleman from Morocco who was president, between 2000 and 2005. The other man, Labidi, from Tunisia was. So it gives the impression of inclusivity. And of course, this gentleman who is now there, Sidi, he has the experience. PhD from the University of Nice in France, executive training, London Business School, Harvard Business School. He has also been Director General, to be specific, of the Arab Economic Development Bank, they call it BEDA, and under his watch, that bank rose to acquire AAA, rating. So he has the experience, he has the technical expertise. He may have won on the basis, as I said, of inclusivity, because not Africa is also part of this equation. The Southerners have had more time. Nigeria, Senegal, Zambia, Senegal, they've been presidents. Nigeria, and now you have somebody from Mauritania who is president. I think this gives confidence, to other members of the group. So 54 members from Africa, 27 members who are non-regional members voted yesterday to make him president of the ADB. He's president at a time now when there are a lot of challenges. Debt burden in Africa, reduction of aid from the United States, climate change challenges. These are issues that he has to face. Second, he's taken over from Akinwumi Adesina, who represented Nigeria very well, by the way, and he's stepping into very big shoes. Adesina came with high fives, industrialize Africa, light up Africa, improve the lives of Africans, and all of those issues. He increased capital and all of that. So Sidi has to make sure that under his watch, those challenges are not, detracted from. Now, he campaigned on the basis of private sector inclusion, doing a lot in the direction of climate change. So we're going to watch him closely when he takes over on September 1. It's September 1. Additional C has a 2-month period. Finally, I would like to commend Akinwumi Adesina. I know that President Tinubu has commended him. President Buhari has also commended him. In fact, President Buhari was the man who supported Adesina at that time to become governor of the, president of the African Development Bank. And it's refreshing to see that President Buhari says, oh, you have done well. I supported you. He even called him son of Nigeria. He's not just son of Nigeria, he's son of Africa. He has discharged that responsibility in a responsible manner. And he has left a legacy that will be talked about. What is the future for Adesina? I'm sure, I believe, I'm convinced that Akinwumi Adesina will find further expression for his talent, for his genius, for the leadership that he has shown, and that Nigeria should be grateful to him that he has done very well to represent this country very well. The first Nigerian to become president of the AfDB, and he did not disappoint. So when he steps down, the Mauritanians can take over the baton, but we expect that Mauritania also will not disappoint us. This is the major international finance organization in Africa. Congratulations to the new president, and congratulations also to Adesina, and congratulations to Nigeria. We have had a good run for 10 years. And we are the biggest stakeholder anyway. We have over 9% investment in that bank. We have the Nigerian Trust Fund. But, Nigeria, President Tinubu has made clear, we continue to support the AfDB. And I think that leadership role, either at the individual level or at the country level, I think it's important. And President Tinubu has struck the right note on this subject.
Absolutely. I do hope President Tar can keep up the momentum that has been built by Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, especially speaking from home ground for here in Nigeria, because Nigeria was a huge beneficiary to a lot of the capital injections, investment flow that came in from the Africa Development Bank. So we'll continue to keep tabs on that. I'll quickly head over to the editorial from the Financial Times, which came, of course, at a timely moment as we mark the midterm anniversary of the President Tinubu administration. What I liked about the editorial is that I love when a writer points out problems and then steers us in the direction of solutions. So I want to focus on those solutions today because there are a number of issues that we continue to tackle here. And this is maybe a repetition of perspective, but important to reiterate. Now, one of the issues, of course, is around inflation. The conversation around inflation now, which is opposed to last year. Last year, inflation was more petrol PMS driven. This year, we're looking at food driven inflation. Now, if you look at the South states, for example, they've been able to achieve the greatest reduction in food inflation. Now, you ask yourself, why and what's happening there? It means that there is room for the state governments to start to get involved in agriculture and food production in other places in the country, despite the traditional northern regions where we're used to getting our bread basket from. So this is a call to the governors in those states that have the potential to explore agriculture to do so, whether it be agricultural inputs, agricultural schemes, mechanization, as well as increased security in those farm areas. So that was one of the things pointed out in this editorial. Another thing pointed out was social contract. Yes, we're celebrating the tax reforms, especially as they were passed in the Senate. Was it just yesterday or the day before yesterday? And of course, they now go for presidential assent. But what do they mean if they do not translate into us beginning to rebuild a social contract between the government and the people? Because for now, most Nigerians will tell you that tax is just in name. Tax is something that it's a deduction from your salary, but how much are you really enjoying what is supposed to be the deliverable of paying tax? So now, with all of the work that has been put in and the advocacy that has happened around these tax reforms, Nigerians need to be vigilant and demand nothing less than a tangible social contract from their government. What does that mean? We want to see improvements in the education system. We want to see improvements in the healthcare system. We want to see improvements in even in our roads. So what I'm saying is that the Financial Times is pointing out tax. What I'm saying to Nigerians is that, very good, this popular tax reform, this controversial tax reform has now passed. Now it's up to us to hold them accountable, because this is your money that is being put to use. Make sure you get your money's worth. Now, the other issue that was dealt with, which we have unpacked on several occasions, was the issue of insecurity. According to the Financial Times, these are the three major things that they feel that this administration needs to focus on. And of course, insecurity goes without saying. Now, there was a point that was made which I found to be very valid, which is the fact that we're now starting to change gears and we're now turning towards the election cycle. They made a warning. They said the pace of change should not be slowed down because we are now shifting our focus to politics. And in the same breath, they also mentioned that this cabinet, this administration, is filled with cronies. I quote, the word cronies was used there. And just a few people of capacity. And they said that now imagine if this government was to be staffed with a full complement of people of capacity, what would be possible? I bring up this point because as we shift towards the election cycle and we shift towards campaigns, it's very important to continue to remind this administration that our focus is on governments. And we should resist the temptation to want to resist able and competent technocrats with those that may offer more electoral value.